Hey everyone, welcome back to the channel. I'm Dane, your host of the Rock and Metal Guardian. I hope you're having a fabulous day. Today is my part 2 video for my top 30 favorite vocalists of all time, and at the end of yesterday's video, I teased you with who my 15th favorite vocalist is, so we'll talk about why he is my 15th favorite vocalist, and that is Brian Connolly of Sweet. And there's just something edgy and dynamic about his slightly raspy voice, if you will. Just has a subtle raspiness to his voice at times, and it can be quite powerful, whether you're talking about the early bubblegum stuff that they did with the first album, and then when they started writing their own songs, when you get to their hard rock or edgier rock stuff, if you will, with albums like Desolation Boulevard, whether you're talking about the British version, the American version, or the follow-up to that, which is, Give Us a Wink. And then he can also sing in a more down-to-earth, light, ethereal way when you have songs like Love is Like Oxygen and Silver Bird, songs on the Level-Headed album, which are much different from what came with the hard rock and stuff on, like I said, Give Us a Wink and Desolation Boulevard. So he has quite a different range in the sense that he can sing at a high register, sort of, not super high, but he can sing in a high quasi raspy way, and then he can bring it down as well. And so just he lends different flavors to all the different things that the band had in the Brian Connolly years. So Brian Connolly, number 15. Number 14 is Ian Gillen of Deep Purple and that one album with Black Sabbath. I'm not big into his solo career. He has 3 solo periods. He has the Ian Gillen Band, then just Ian Gillen, and then Ian Gillen solo. I'm sorry, Ian Gillen Band, then Gillen, then Ian Gillen solo. And the last one I like the best compared to the other two. But most what I like about Ian Gillen is when he's in Deep Purple, he has that vocal range. He can sing really high, like in songs like Child in Time, and then he can bring it down as well. Songs like Space Truckin', of course, Smoke on the Water comes to mind. Just heavy at times, like the songs on In Rock, and then he can do more bluesy stuff. The way he sings on Perfect Strangers, to come back up, just an overall great voice from singing high and then singing everything in between and then down at times as well. So just a powerful voice and very charismatic. Number 13 is David Byron of Uriah Heep. Talk about a vocalist who has different ranges. If you listen to Paradise, The Spell on Demons and Wizards, you have it right there in those 2 songs which are connected. The different ranges he can do. He can sing high, and then he can bring it down, and everything in between. He can sing really high, like on songs like All My Life, and then he can sing more in a soft-spoken register or quasi-soft-spoken register on things like, oh God, now the song has eluded me. Oh, The Wizard. So things like that. David Byron, just a great vocalist. Number 12 is Getty Lee. And in my previous video, I mentioned how people have compared Getty Lee of Rush to Rick Emmett of Triumph. And while I get the connection, there is a similarity there. I mentioned in the previous video that Rick Emmett has a more aesthetically pleasing voice than Getty Lee does. So why have I put Getty Lee in the 12th spot and yet Rick Emmett's in the 24th spot? And that's because Getty Lee has a certain charm. He has a unique voice, despite the fact he's not as aesthetically pleasing, right? He's no Rick Emmett, he's no Steve Walsh, he's no Steve Perry. There's something that works with Rush. I can't see a different vocalist, any other vocalist, working and fitting in with the type of music that Rush did, that Rush did. So, and having said that, that special quality of Lee's voice, despite the fact that it's not as charismatic. I'm sorry, it is very charismatic, despite the fact that it's not as clean at times, because Getty can wail, and I like that about him in the early stuff. He can wail and bring it that high register to the table. So he can do it all in the sense that he can sing high and wail, and he can scream, but he can also sing in a lower register, the way he sings on Vapor Trails and the way he sings on Permanent Waves and Moving Pictures. So once again, while he's not the most aesthetically pleasing voice of all time, there's that specialness to his voice that I like. And so because it's so special and unique and so powerful in its own right and so charismatic in a different way, I'm putting him at number 12. Number 11 is Phil Mogg or Phil Moog of UFO. He has a certain raspy, at times subtly raspy voice to certain songs, and he's just got an interesting range. He's got some powerful chops at times, and he can also sing in a very charming, low, soft way, the way he does on, say, songs like Love to Love You on the Lights Out album. So just powerful at times and yet emotive at others, and so there's that dynamic ability of him as well. So Phil Mogg of UFO. Next is Bruce Dickinson, number 10. He cracks my top 10. When I think of Bruce Dickinson, I think of that high register of his in songs like the song Flight of Icarus, and he sings that way in other songs as well. And yet you also get songs like, if you talk about his stint with Samson, this is a compilation, new wave of British heavy metal. They have on here the Samson song, Vice Versa. And so songs like that type in his solo stuff. So Bruce Dickinson been of course compared to Rob Halford of Judas Priest, and I get that, but I can tell them apart. I know some people early on could not, but there's just a range with Bruce Dickinson that you don't get. Hallowed Be Thy Name, right? Revelations, just some great all around vocal greatness from Bruce Dickinson. Sorry about that long pause. Next, number 9 is Steve Walsh from Kansas. This is another aesthetically pleasing voice, different from anyone I've mentioned so far, and who I will mention. There's no one like Steve Walsh. He just has a super emotive voice. While I'm not a big fan of his stint in the band Streets, of course, when I think of Steve Walsh, I think about what he did with Kansas, and he's done some things. So solo stuff is okay. I like some songs he did with Steve Hackett on Steve Hackett's third solo album. I can't remember the title of that album. And he's done some other stuff, of course. I think he did a duet. Don't quote me on this. I think he did a duet with Ann Wilson. I'm not sure. But anyway, he's outside of Kansas and Streets. He's done some other stuff, but Kansas, his stuff with Kansas is where it's at. Just a great emotive voice, and he's got some powerful stuff that he does with Kansas, and he can sing beautifully, and he can sing with just such mood. You just get one of those moods, right? I'm not saying that right, but he's just got a voice for the right mood, if you will, that Kansas brings to the palette of rock music, or prog rock, if you will, or American prog rock. So Steve Walsh of Kansas. Number 8, finally a woman in my list, is Ann Wilson. When I think of Ann Wilson, the song that comes to mind that serves as the best example or highlight of her career is Crazy on You. Yes, you have those lyrics, I dreamt I was a willow last night in a dream, or something like that, and I bent over a clear running stream, I heard the call, blah, 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 and then she goes into this really high, right, and I'm like, wow, this is the Ann Wilson I know and love. Of course, the first half of the discography of Heart is where it's at. I like some of the later stuff, but can she still sing today? So she's kept her voice healthy, right? Very charismatic vocalist, very charismatic person. If you've looked at some of the things she posted during the COVID pandemic, when everyone was, staying at home and that sort of thing, I was following some of that. So just a great, powerful vocalist. She's got the chops, boy. She can belt it out with the rest of. She can belt them with the rest of them. So number 7 is Jeff Tate of Queensryche, another operatic style vocalist. And while I wish Jeff Tate would have stayed longer in the band Queensryche, it's a shame that you had the breakup of the band with the schism and the lawsuits and all that. But you have to move on. And while I don't like much of what he did post Queensryche, what he did with Queensryche is powerful enough for me to put him on this list, because Queensryche is such a big part of my life, and his voice is such a big part of my life. So Jeff Tate, one of the greatest vocalists of all time, for me, number 7. Number 6 is Paul Stanley of Kiss. And again, like so many bands or artists, I have to talk about how the first half of their discography is where it's at. But when you get to, this is part of the first half, is when you get to the album Dynasty, and you have a more of a R&B flavored rock dynamic on the album, well, at least when Paul sings. So you have Magic Touch, Sure Know Something, and of course I Was Made for Loving You. These have an R&B flavor to them. Of course, I Was Made for Loving You, disco/R&B. He has an R&B voice in so many ways, and that's what makes Kiss so beloved, for why Kiss is so endearing to me. And of course, he can sing heavy with things like I Still Love You, a song like that. Wow, that range on that song is just so powerful. And of course, all the early stuff, the live album, Kiss Alive 1, Kiss Alive 2. That early Kiss is where it's at. So I have to include, if you look at his solo album, the Kiss solo album, Paul Stanley, songs like Love and Chains, you have this R&B rock style voice. It's just great. So number 5 is Rob Halford of Judas Priest, another operatic style vocalist. He can sing in a really high register. Songs like Screaming for Vengeance come to mind. The stylings that he sings on the Fight albums, the way he sings on Painkiller. But I also like the way he sings on Bringing It Down other songs on Screaming for Vengeance. He can sing in a more lower register, not high all the time. I like the high once in a while, but I prefer when he's kind of bringing it down. If we talk about his high voice, songs like Dreamer, Deceiver, and then of course he can sing in a lower register on things like Epitaph. So Rob Halford, number 5. Number 4 is Ronnie James Dio, whether we're talking about Rainbow, Black Sabbath, or his solo band Dio. His voice is like no others. Just a great range, just a great emotive, powerful, singing about fantasy, demons and dragons and angels and rainbows, right? All kind of wonderful stuff. And it's not just the song content, but he has a great voice, and it's so captivating. It is intoxicating. So Ronnie James Dio, number 4. Number 3 is David Coverdale. Another blues styling type vocalist. Of course, you get into that 80s metal stuff as well, but it still has that bluesy edge that we know for him having in early Whitesnake and Deep Purple. And of course, he has those 2 wonderful solo albums, North Winds and Whitesnake. I love those. I listen to those all the time. And so there's just something about David Coverdale's voice. It has an edginess to it. It has a rawness. It has a lot of soul to it. So David Coverdale, number 3. Number 2, David Bowie. This vocalist has, talk about soul to it, right? He has so many different flavors, has a broad palette. Whether we're talking, he's singing, for the most part, has a baritone style voice, but then he can sing high. It's not, a wailing high or some of the vocalists I mentioned here, but he can sing, he can bring it a little lighter to the table, right? He can sing deep as well, as we know, but he just has so many different flavors, as I said, to all the different styles. Each album is different from the next, right? And his voice lends perfectly to that style of music that he brings, whether he's doing pop, some heavy stuff, some glam, you name it. So David Bowie, my second favorite vocalist of all time. Finally, we get to Robert Plant, my favorite vocalist of all time. And talk about that. He's been described as the male Janis Joplin back in the 70s, I believe. And I get that, but there's more to it than that. He just fits so well into what Led Zeppelin is doing. I like some of his solo stuff. He's just got a great range, a great charismatic and powerful and captivating voice. It's intoxicating. And at times, songs like Stairway to Heaven, it's ethereal. So there you have it, everybody. My top favorite vocalist of all time. Please put in the comments below your list of what you think your favorite vocalist of all time are, however short or however long you want it to be. Thanks for watching. Have a great day.